Morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's our first time actually that we are sponsoring a congress like this, and I think we couldn't make a better choice to connect with all of you and learn from you today and yesterday, of course. So today I'm going to be walking you through a little bit on what is Mitra, what we do in Mitra, where we go. And we picked two use cases for this audience, which we think is relevant. And the aim really here is for you is to walking you through it, get some thoughts, feedbacks, as that's how we grow and how we're building solutions. So starting with Mitra, what is Mitra? Mitra AI is best of breed spend analytics solutions, really focused on strategic sourcing and category management. And where did Mitra start? I think it's good to say just a little bit of a story. Where did Mitra start and where are we going with it? I used to be working for procurement for the last 10 years. And within my roles, I was lucky to do different roles in Procurement Center of Excellence, program and portfolio management. And we're lucky to be working with a lot of CPOs in the last 10 years, lots of category teams. And I was extremely frustrated with how simple things should take time. How long is it taking that we can deliver the value that we were talking yesterday on a panel to our stakeholders within the procurement team, so they can deliver that to their stakeholders, which is at the end of the day is the business. And I was lucky enough to know a few bright people that they were focused on the technology side. So we came together and we said, okay, let's make something that is working and is working for all of other companies which we share the same problem. So that's where Mitra actually came into existence. We are a young startup. We are a Dutch startup based in Amsterdam. We have an office in Eindhoven as well, in the south of Netherlands. But we started with the concept back in 2020. We founded a company at the end of 2021, but we're making lots of tractions. And yeah, we're at the beginning of this journey, which we're looking forward to move for to continue. Talked about a little bit where Mitra actually, why the Mitra came into existence, but also we have dream to think about as where Mitra goes and what kind of problems does Mitra can solve for the group. So at the beginning of our journey, the focus for us is to simplify the cognitive load of information for the end users. Category managers, strategic sourcing managers or analysts or buyers receiving tons of information, and as referred yesterday, lots of those are low quality. So they had to be dealing a lot with cleansing, doing a lot of Excel exercises to be able to make sense of that data. And they're spending usually between 30 to up to 70% of their time really crunching the data, and the remaining will go into understanding the insights and what they can do with it. So we want to turn this equation around, where we actually take the difficult job of cleansing and preparing, transforming the data, and the people in the business are able basically to do what they love, working on the insights, working and executing on opportunities that they do see, and share the win with the rest of the organization. But the bigger piece that we are going to, I think, as a society, I believe, is that till now, every company we're thinking about themselves only, right? About us, how we can optimize ourselves, and maybe our next tier suppliers, maybe the second tier suppliers. But we do believe in a world that strategic sourcing decisions are win-win, not only for your company, but also for the at the industry level, for the other companies. We are making decisions that are in the favor of a planet and a people at the end of the day. So not sub-optimizing this decision-making process only isolated to ourselves, but with a broader range. So let's go through the presentation. But before we start, we definitely would love to have active participation. from people in the room, as well as people who are watching us online. So we're going to start actually going through a small poll that we're going to be utilizing. So I just want to ask you to take your mobile phones. If you can scan the barcode, if you're too far and you cannot scan the barcode, you can just go into slido.com and put the digits, and you'll be able then guided to this page. It basically shows you this question. So the question is, what was in your current role or your previous role that you've been part of? What was the greatest roadblock for you to increase addressable spend? And we know there's thousands of reasons in there, but we have basically broke these down into 4 key pillars based on the research has done by Gartner, actually. We were testing this, and yesterday Chris already was voting on number 1, and I see he's already biased everybody there. He's working in IT here, so I can see the voters are coming in, and very interesting. So these 4 areas are basically, I think number 1, you already know, the taxonomy piece is something maybe is not so clear to everyone. It's not getting the amount of attention that it needs, actually. And I think the resources and organizational structure are those 2 other dynamics. So maybe giving another 10 seconds, 20 seconds. We already had 60 votes here, so thank you so much. By far is the multiple different systems and IT dependencies. So we're definitely going to go back to this and to each of these use cases, which we think the same. The Gartner also mentioned that over 40%, so across all of these areas, over 40% is actually relevant to different sources of data, dependencies, and the quality of the data. Obviously, no surprises here. We're getting into the same level. So we're going to be referring back actually to this poll into these use cases that we have. We had 2 choices for today. We could show you some fancy presentation and stay high level, and we could show you some use cases. Actually, you see how it actually works because the devil is in the details. So we went for the latter one. It's not going to look as fancy, but you're going to see what you expect and what kind of challenges we have been dealing with and how we're addressing those challenges. All right, let's just start. So our first case is a global food processing brand, and the challenge there was the indirect spend optimization. Indirect spend optimization is one of the most challenging parts. You all know the different kind of challenges there, but this company is one of the biggest food processing companies in the world. I think top 3 in Europe had a specific challenges there. So if I get into each of those ones, so 1.6 billion revenue, multiple locations, 20 plus locations, of course, different ERPs, and over 9,000 suppliers. When we start talking to them, they had visibility to 7% of these suppliers and 12% of spend, which was extremely surprising. They had multiple different and incomplete taxonomies, so spend hierarchy across their business, which we're going to show you a little bit more. And of course, no surprises, lack of resources. And the last one, which is even making it worse, is that they had a completely decentralized procurement organization. So they were not connected to each other, a smaller team, but also decentralized. So that makes things obviously worse. What we've done for them, and we're going to show you, I think, a highlight of what we've done, obviously with anonymized and randomized data there, is we help them to refine and optimize their ideal taxonomy. We're working with a business to utilize our app to come together actually and be able to refine their taxonomy to what it needs to be. I think it's kind of a continuation of the conversation we had yesterday on the panel. We've helped them in a matter of 3 weeks to basically categorize 94% of their suppliers and 99% of their spend. And in the next 3 weeks, they have basically reviewed and approved those. So these are what has already reviewed and accepted by the business. On the other side, we don't have a crystal ball. So AI cannot do everything. And we do believe that the SMEs need to be in the loop. So all what we do and what you see in the next few slides is that how can we simplify do the complex work in the background, simplify the results for our end users so they can focus on what exactly is needed to be done. So that's what we're trying to do, and it has been very effective on these two cases. We've identified about 12% opportunities across their supplier base. Obviously, they were managing 300 to 400 suppliers, and now they could be looking into close to 9,000 suppliers. And obviously, when you move from 400 suppliers to 8,000 suppliers or any other proportion like this, and you do have a limited resources, you want to make sure that you allocate resources in the right place. So we're helping them to segment their supplier base, utilizing the data, so they can basically focus on what matters and be able to rationalize their supplier base. So I'm going to go into each of these levels, maybe a little bit faster, to show you the details on how we have been basically handling each of these areas. So when we go to any client or where you have initial conversations with any business, the first and most boring question we're asking them is, do you have a spend taxonomy? And in what maturity is this spend taxonomy? For procurement, as you know better than I do, the spend taxonomy or hierarchy is the lens that procurement professionals look through the world with. So if you have a very dirty lens or you have an adjusted lens, how can you see what's relevant for you and how can you take action on those? So when we ask this question, no surprise, we usually get 20 different Excel files across different business that says, oh yeah, this is our corporate taxonomy, this is a finance taxonomy, this is a business unit one taxonomy, this is taxonomy we're trying to be utilizing here, but some use it and some not. And at the end of the day, with too many structures, none of them were going to be utilized, right? What we have helped them actually with the app, and as I mentioned yesterday, we are enabler for the procurement organizations to do things faster and more effective. It's basically ability for them. We have built a taxonomy builder, ability for procurement organizations to be able to basically bring their spend hierarchy, sharing it with their other colleagues across the business, and being able to provide feedback, get feedback, reflect that feedback, and in real time have that feedback reflected on their transactions. Obviously, this goes through different layers of approvals through the organization, so making sure everything is compliant and can be reviewed. But this is something I have been missing for for the last 10 years across anywhere that I have worked. And actually, in this use case, this company actually went in and I think they changed their taxonomy 3 times or modified their taxonomy 3 times. This is what you can see. Basically, a user or SME can be utilizing to go into taxonomy, make changes, rename, add different levels, as well as merge or move the categories. And these are all connected, interconnected together with their transactional data. So you just see one of these examples, basically. And this output of this can be basically what they have been utilizing it to be fitting it into their ERP system. So they're utilizing SAP ERP system. So all of these changes with the material code or category code is actually being able to be reflected on their ERP system, utilizing a one center-led process and a capability to manage all of their transactions. A good thing is to be bringing, I think in this case, to bringing really finance and treasury together with the procurement team on the indirect side of the house. The next one, the big challenge here on an indirect, as always, is that you never have enough data. So one of the biggest challenges, and here is the same, it's that 30% of the spend was on a PO. Obviously, problems with the supplier master data, limited information or incorrect sometimes information on the invoices. And so we had the very basic information that we could have utilized from supplier, just looking into a location, the invoice number, the GL codes, and the business units there. What we did for them is to basically augmenting their transactional data, utilizing external data points. So one of the advantages that we are taking into our design is that for every client, we're designing their specific tailor algorithms, who's being able to help and understand the own taxonomy and able to reflect those ones. So we are understanding for every client, what are those key data elements that the business is utilizing today, what those matters and what are we missing, and how we can be capturing the missing part and bringing back into the platform for them. So for this specific case, we've been looking into supplier A, outside what supplier A does actually, what are those products and services that it's providing, how those are categorized actually outside of this company, and some other areas in terms of how's the growth rate of this supplier, and obviously bringing all those refined taxonomy into the mix as well. So with this plan, we'll be able to be building a model for algorithm for them and really run this algorithm in a matter of days to start categorization with their ideal taxonomy. So, and this is how it looks like. So the user is basically seeing all the suggestions by the machine, and is able to basically review by exceptions at a category or subcategory level, provide input and feedback. And based on the feedback that is being provided, the algorithm will be basically learning and replicating those through the rest of the data. Obviously, this goes through, again, across this organization, especially the challenge was they have been extremely decentralized. So we could basically bring different type of users across the business who know the business really well. And they could be spending, I think in average, probably they spend about half an hour to an hour on the 3 weeks to basically go through and validate all these data. So that was a power to be utilizing more users that are maybe not as specifically also a procurement, but working with those suppliers to get this data. Procurement team is always having a challenge that everything is expected from them. From my last life, I used to be putting category analysts and category managers in one room and pushing them through an hour or 2 hours to go and helping us to categorize stuff manually. And this group of people would do anything not to be in that room or in that meeting with me, because that was really literally the last thing they wanted to do. So we've been trying to be solving this, turn this around. And so they or their peers only need to review only if it's needed, because the value is not here. The value is actually what happens after. So now you have the final taxonomy in place. We have a categorization and review. We've done lots of data cleansing. We can show you more, I think, in the next case already. And now is the part that the procurement people love, right? Looking into the inside, understanding how this spend portfolio is actually distributed across this taxonomy. What are those categories or subcategories that are not managed today or have never been managed? What are those subcategories that don't make sense to be a standalone? So we need to be consolidating them. They can all see this in a view, in a very simple but effective view, and basically react on it. They can go back into the taxonomy builder. They can suggest a different consolidation. And most importantly, looking to that supplier segmentation. So we can go into the supplier segmentation, we are helping them with basically categorizing the suppliers into 3 different buckets: strategic, critical, and transactionals. And they can review it and they can decide if they want to have a different preferences across each of these suppliers. Other modules, what they get most out of it is really ability to look into, and this is one of the many examples, of course, is understanding what is the spend concentration across each of these categories and subcategories. And you can see in this example, we're looking into one of these subcategories in professional services and understanding we have a low level of concentration. So they can see easily who are the suppliers that are contributing across all of the business, and immediately are able to create an opportunity to be looking into this. So this is an example where they basically look into consolidating some of the HR consultancy services that has been provided to them across the business into one of the biggest suppliers. Can be always as simple as this. Of course, you see the highlights, but trying to compare this with all the interactions that we used to do with Excel and the SharePoint, just as it mentioned, and bring all this together, it's really generating that value for the organization. Let's see if I have something else to show here. And of course, there's opportunities. Opportunity lifecycle is part that always have been isolated from the work that the procurement team is doing. And for this group, it was extremely valuable that procurement team and finance and treasury group have one view of what are the benefits that the procurement team is basically generating. So bringing them together, creating the workflows that the finance group is aware and aligned with the saving, that is the biggest value for that group in terms of the time, but also alignments with the group. The remaining is just a typical reporting. We're not trying to be a reporting tool, but obviously for a bigger organization to communicate the work that has been done, this was a feature that has been developed as has been requested by this client. I'm going to be moving into the second case and also looking into the time, which is a slightly different and extremely new comparing to what we have seen before, and new in terms of the approach that we're taking. So the second case is about a global consumer brand, a massive one, which is about to basically integrate a big merger into their current spend and start managing those pieces. And we have basically developed this feature after conversations that we had, over 100 conversations we had over the last year and a half. And this Synergy Finder or Spend Synergy application has multiple applications. One of those is obviously on merger and acquisitions. The other one is when you have a centralized, decentralized procurement center, or you want to move into the centralized, you want to have the ability to be able to capture, scan, and prioritize different spend across different business units or brands, and be able to decide which one of those can you or will you want to be integrating from a business perspective, and which one of those actually the strategy is not to integrate, but you might still have opportunities there. So we try to be actually addressing that, exactly that. Just going through a profile, obviously, one of the biggest consumer brands, massive amount of spend, massive amount of ERPs and the suppliers. For them, the challenges was once they want to go through this exercise, usually it would taking them about 6 to 8 months to go through this exercise. And at the beginning of this exercise, also before the due diligence, they have a very limited amount of exposure to the other company. So they wanted to be doing some due diligence, understanding what they can get out of this merger in terms of the synergy for the procurement organization, but as well as orchestrating how they would like to actually bring this new organization and manage it from a procurement perspective. So accuracy, obviously maintaining their legacy taxonomy and expanding that as it's needed. And the cycle time was a critical areas for them. So we're going to go through each of these areas, but we specifically have been helping them with the Spend Synergy Finder application, where they can basically capture, scan, prioritize, and integrate, while at the same time in parallel, they're able to spot those opportunities, synergy opportunities, and work on them completely in parallel. They don't need to be waiting for anything else. So we're getting to maybe the first example, where ability to capture is extremely important. So in a matter of days, they can get an extract. They will be able to basically utilize our app to immediately understand, okay, what is the common amount of suppliers here? What is the common amount of similar categories in this area? And being able to dive into each of those. So here we're looking into common suppliers across 2 businesses, and this could be, by the way, across 2 business units, which one is not being managed currently. And all the supplier normalization and data cleansing has been done in the background. So in the front end, what they can see a supplier who's actually is common across both areas. So this is an example of finding putting a master supplier agreement across these suppliers, because it's a massive spend across both of these profiles. This usually would be taking a lot of time, or people going through this in my past manually. But now you have one page that you can actually see all of these opportunities. And what you need to do is basically go in there and start validating. The second part, which is taking even more time and is a key area, is to understand how these categorizations are relevant to each other. Because there is another company, or there's another business unit which they might be thinking differently, but they might be actually managing very similar profile of products or services. So what you see here is basically a mapping between the two taxonomies, where the user can go, again, see the suppliers across both levels, even be able to drill down into the transactional levels, and immediately, again, create an opportunity if they see something. A business who has 50 different locations will never, ever be able to bring all of those into one single instance of ERP system. This is a promise I have been given for the last 10 years. And I know we all going to get retired, and we can never, ever bring everything into one system. And it's not the right thing to do, because sometimes you want to close some of those locations. And if your company is doing some of the work on acquisitions, you will always have new locations, new systems. Again, just the same use case here, going into the opportunity life cycles once these opportunities are found. And these are the advantages, that the team can be extremely agile and being able to work on those opportunities and be aware of those opportunities and plan for those opportunities even before they decide to do any integration. So that's a key advantage, to make procurement team and category team extremely proactive. And obviously, after this exercise, you would decide to bring some of the business and integrate them to your spend. So how do you do that frictionless? And this is where basically the application of our merge application comes to place, where we actually look into two stages. We're looking into taxonomy mapping between the two organizations, with having the SMEs in the loop. So the category managers or category analysts on the other company or other business units, or SMEs on the other business units, can be actually understanding what is your taxonomy. The AI has done majority of the legwork or the heavy lifting, who has already associated basically all the categories that are similar to each other. And it's still the SME is able, like this example, being able to review and override. AI, again, cannot do everything together. So not everything can be matched, of course. So the SME is able to basically review and add more input and context at the stage one, to make sure that the taxonomies are mapped. So the view that you see here is basically the outcome of the mapping. And again, this exercise took months, usually at this scale. So you need to be bringing the whole group together and organizing all these conversations in different ways using Excel or any other application. But now you can use our solution, in basically a centered and easy way to bring everybody and collect the thoughts and all the feedback. So you can see here what AI has been suggesting and what is actually manually overseen and basically inputted by the subject matter expert. And the next stage is going into now getting that input at the taxonomy level, bring everything down into the transactional level. So getting into the suppliers, getting into nitty-gritty details of the transactions of parts and services, and being able to do primarily the same thing, bringing reviewing by exception, where we do have low confidence, or we need to have more examples of type of the spend. Looking into the time, need to be careful here. So yeah, here we go. Be sharing two examples, slightly different challenges. We have still, I think, about 2.5 minutes for some questions. What I wanted to ask you is, you can basically scan this barcode and share your questions, thoughts, comments, everything that you've seen on the slide is basically the features that have been developed as requested by procurement, different procurement teams, and we continue to be building and collecting those feedbacks into our solution. We can open it for some Q&A. You can scan the barcode, and yeah, I think for all the audience, I think they're sitting here today and watching us online, we want to be offering a 2 weeks test drive, so you can actually fill it with your data and test drive our solution and come up with some more feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Please give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was fascinating. I think we've got a few questions already. There's one at the back there. There's two here at the front as well. So the microphone.
Thank you for the presentation. Can you give us some insights in your time planning? How long does it take for you to provide the details that you just showed to get to the 99% classified? I think your booth says 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks, are you at 99%? How soon can you show first results to customers?
Yeah, so from our side, usually, I think it really depends on how clean the data and taxonomy is. So that's a starting point for us. But once we have that, it's a matter of days on our side. And so the majority of the time is really from the SMEs and users to basically review and give feedback. So we said 2 weeks, usually within week and a half, if we do have the complete taxonomy, we have a good understanding of the taxonomy, our output is basically ready. And we usually give users about 2 to 4 to 6 weeks basically to review and give us initial feedback for additional fine-tuning. For a spend synergy, I think it's important to say over there, we're working toward getting into maximum a day, because some of those applications, especially when we're talking about M&A and due diligence, we want to have a very fast turnaround. Thanks for your question.
Charlotte in the front here.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, also really good presentation. Thank you very much. On your first case study, you had a slide about, if I've understood it correctly, you had your supplier A information and then you were enriching the profile with external data. What's your approach for that? Is that some sort of web scraping activity? How do you connect that data? And I might have a follow-up question based on your answer.
No, yeah, we basically use two. We have external data sources, and we also basically crawling the web as well to get to those information.
Okay, brilliant. And then what do you kind of do the lookup on? Obviously, doing it on supplier name could return the wrong vendor. Do you use any particular IDs? Is there any that you found more reliable than others?
So that's actually for each of the engagements that we have. We look to see what client has, and the more information that they can share with us. If it's a supplier name, supplier location, I think those are kind of the basics to have in place, but also EAC numbers, or if they have anything else, maybe they have Dun and Brad numbers or anything else. So I think our USP is really the flexibility to understand how the business is being run today, what are those context and data elements that is being utilized with the business, and how we can complete that puzzle with any other external information that we have. So that's really variable on what client is giving us.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Thanks for your question.
Shannon, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, it was somehow connected to hers, but I'll try and modify a bit. Do you have the ability to connect with the suppliers themselves so you can get the feedback from the supplier themselves? And then the second one is, how do you connect with the data from the clients? Is it integration, downloads, connection?
Yeah, great question. First answer the second question and then the first one. So for us as a procurement people, we want to have insights yesterday. And so what we did is that we have developed this self-service that you can basically extract any information in any format from ERP systems or any other source of information and drag and drop it into our platform. And then we'll be making sense out of it for speed. But obviously, if we're going to move forward, we definitely want to be looking into integrations and building APIs. In terms of your first question, what was the first question? Sorry, I forgot it. Oh yeah, do you connect with the suppliers? So the question was, how do you connect with the suppliers? Because of this feature that we have built, the ability to self-service and bring the data in, we're able to connect with the suppliers through API, if that's a possibility, or they can basically sharing extract with us. We have been working with a bike manufacturing that they had many sub-assemblies around the world that they didn't have any idea what they're spending their data in. So we had this ability for them to basically asking their sub-assembly suppliers to be sharing their spend through our platform. So that's possibility.
Any further questions? No. Okay. So just from my perspective, Russ, I think everybody would agree. Procurement's in a better place for people like you who see problems and then branch out on your own to set something up and develop a new solution. It's a very important part of moving the procurement industry forward. So thank you. Please give Russ a round of applause for his speech.